Okay, so in this video, we're going to be talking about vocabulary related to angles. You're probably going to pause a lot in this video as I have a lot of notes pre-written, so you're going to want to pause, get down what I already have on the board, and then add to it as needed. So right now, if you had printed off this sheet, this should already be there. If not, pause and write it down. Okay, so there are 5 types of angles. There's the zero, acute, right, obtuse, and straight. Some of these, especially these 3, you have probably already heard, okay, but we're going to define them. So a zero angle is going to be an angle that is 0 degrees. Okay, that's simple. You may not have heard of it. We don't deal with it a lot, but technically it is there. What does it look like? It looks like a ray. Okay, a ray is different than a line. So a line goes forever in both directions, and I would draw an arrow on both sides. A ray only goes forever in one direction and has a starting point. So think of like a ray of sun. It starts at the sun and beams out from there. Okay? An acute angle, most of you know, the measure, so M is for measure, is between 0 and 90 degrees. So the measure of this angle has to be bigger than 0, but has to be less than 90. I always think of it as a cute little angle. So it's a very small angle. It's smaller than that 90 degree. Most of you know that a right angle is when it is exactly 90 degrees. Okay, and that's where you're going to get your L or your corner shaped angle. That looks like this. And most of the time what we do is we draw a little box in there to denote that we want this angle to be 90 degrees, even if we're pretty bad at drawing like I am. That means it's supposed to be 90 degrees exactly. So your obtuse angle is bigger than your acute and your right angle. And so this one, your measure has to be bigger than 90, but it's still less than 180, okay? So I think of this as that's my cute little angle, and this is my obtuse. I just think of it as very big. So an obtuse angle might look like that, or it's bigger than 90 degrees. And then you have your straight angle, which is exactly 180 degrees. A straight angle is kind of what it sounds like. It's a straight line. So you can see the difference between a ray and a line here. So those are our 5 types of angles, okay? And some of these you have heard of. Now, let's back up and talk about, well, what is an angle? Okay, so to really understand these, let's talk about what an angle is. And you could probably take these notes down here. So an angle, the actual definition of an angle is the union of 2 rays. Okay? We talked about what a ray was versus a line back here. So this is a ray. As you can see, all of these angles, it's a union of 2 rays. Here's a ray and here's a ray, and they come together at this point. This 90-degree angle, here's a ray, they come together here. The obtuse angle is a ray, and then our straight angle, believe it or not, are just 2 rays in completely opposite directions. So it is a union of 2 rays that come together at this point. And I have an example here as well. Okay, so here's a ray that comes at this point, and then here is a ray. This point where the union of the rays happen, that is called the vertex of the angle. Okay, so where the 2 rays come together and that union happens is called the vertex. Okay, you know we measure angles in degrees. I just got done talking about that. 0 to 90 degrees, a 90-degree angle, a 102-degree angle. Okay, and what degrees are showing us is how open our angle is. So it's showing us from here to here how open is that angle. So from one ray to the other, what is the openness? So when we look back at a 0 angle, this is actually 2 rays. It's just that they're on top of each other, so there is 0 opening between them, which is why it's 0 degrees. An acute angle has very little opening. There's not going to be a lot there, which is why it's going to remain between 0 and 90. 90 is when you open exactly from horizontal up to vertical like this. 180 or obtuse is going to be your bigger opening, And straight is when this ray has opened and gone all the way over. Okay? Angles can only be 0 to 180 degrees. They cannot be any bigger or any smaller. Now, are there times that we have degrees bigger than 180? Yes, but that has nothing to do with angles. That has to do with rotations and circles. So I get that there are degrees bigger than 180, but when it comes to angles, they have to be 0 to 180 degree angle. Okay? Now, we have to name our angles. Okay? We have to give this angle a name. So what you want to do when naming an angle is mainly you're focusing on the vertex. Okay? First thing you're going to do is our angle symbol, which looks like a less than sign. And then to name it, you're going to use 3 letters. The vertex has to be in the middle. You have to use a letter from one ray. In this case, it's A. You put your vertex in the middle. And then you need a letter from the other ray, which is C. So this angle is called angle A, B, C. I could, if I wanted to, call it angle CBA. That order doesn't really matter. Okay? I've had some students in the past say, can I just call it angle B? In this situation, yes, you can. Because if I say angle B, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this openness right here. You cannot always call it angle B though. For example, if I draw 2 angles like this, can't really see that. Now if I say angle B, this is a D. Now if I say angle B, am I talking about this one, or this big one? There are actually 3 angles here in this picture. So I can't just say angle B anymore because now, well, which one are you talking about? So this is where we have to go back to naming with 3 letters. So this angle right here is angle A, B, C. This angle down here, I'm going to mark it with a star. C is on one side, B is still the vertex, and then D is the other ray. So I can call that angle CBD. Now, if I trace in the order of the letters, I should be tracing the angle. C to B to D is that angle. And finally, I have the big angle, which is A, B, D. A to B to D. So that's how we name angles. Okay, and that's what angles can look like. Now, let's talk about our pairs of angles and our types, which are the back of your note sheet. The first one is complementary angles. Complementary angles are 2 angles that will add up to 90 degrees, and I emphasize the 2. It is not 3 angles, it's not 4 angles, and it's not 1 angle. One 90-degree angle is a right angle. This is 2 angles that would add up to 90 degrees. So for example, if I had a 30-degree angle and a 60-degree angle, those are complementary because 30 plus 60 is 90. I might also have, if I have a right angle that's split, I don't know these measures, but I know that they have to add up to 90 because together they make a 90-degree angle, so they are complementary. Even if I don't know the measures, because I know that they make a right angle, I know they're complementary angles. Okay, and that brings us to supplementary. Supplementary angles are 2, again, 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 1, 2 angles that add up to 180 degrees this time. Okay, so same idea. I could have a 30-degree angle and then a big 150-degree angle. Those add up to 180, so they're supplementary. Or I could have a 180-degree angle that's being split. Again, I don't know these 2 measures, but I know together they make a 180-degree angle, so therefore they have to be supplementary. Now, most of you will remember this without a problem, and you'll remember this without a problem. What a lot of people trip up on is remembering which one is which. So I have a little trick for you. If you add a line to the C, it becomes 90 That can help you remember that complementary is the one that adds up to 90. And if I add a line to the S, it becomes an 8. That can help you remember that supplementary is the 180. Okay? Next definition, adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are angles that share a side and a vertex. Okay? So back here, these are adjacent angles. Okay? The dot and the star are adjacent angles. They share this side. This side belongs to this angle, and they share the vertex B. I talk a lot about it. It's kind of like living in an apartment. If I'm in an apartment, and this is my apartment, my neighbor and I, we share this wall. Versus if I live in a house and my neighbor's house is over here, we don't share a wall, there's a lawn between us. So think of an adjacent angles like an apartment building where you share that wall. Okay? Congruent angles are angles that have the same measure. Very simple. They're equal to each other. So a 30-degree angle and a 30-degree angle. Okay, that's it. We've heard congruent before. It means they're equal. Two 90-degree angles. Those are congruent because they're both 90 degrees. Okay, that becomes important here. Vertical angles. Vertical angles are angles that are across from each other when you have intersecting lines. So, if I have intersecting lines like an X, my vertical angles, I'm going to number these. This is angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4. Okay? The angles that are across from each other are considered to be vertical angles. So in this case, my vertical angles are angle 1 and angle 3. And then another pair of vertical angles is angle 2 and angle 4. I like to think of vertical angles as shoes. They come in pairs. Okay, so imagine that these are my flip-flops. I have to have a pair of flip-flops that are the same size to fit both my feet, and then these are my tennis shoes. So they're not equal to each other. Okay, the tennis shoes and the flip-flops are not the same thing, but my pair of flip-flops is the same. My pair of tennis shoes is the same. So I have two pairs of shoes that are different from each other. I have two pairs of vertical angles. Okay, now what's important about this is vertical angles are congruent. They're the same. That means since angle 1 and 3 are vertical, they are equal to each other. And since angle 2 and 4 are vertical, they are equal to each other. So if I tell you angle 1 is 50 degrees, that means you know angle 3 is also 50 degrees. Okay? Then angle 2 is 130 degrees. How did I know that? These are supplementary. They lie on a line. So they have to add up to 180. So if angle 2 is 130 degrees, angle 4 has to also be 130 degrees because they have to add up to 180. We will work more with finding those missing angles, but all of these will help us do that.